So we're going to continue talking about functions. So last unit we talked about linear functions. So we talked about the constant function, our horizontal lines. We talked about the identity function, so y equals x. We talked about slope. We talked about y-intercept, how we move that graph. We're going to add in now our absolute value function. So absolute value of x, remember that shape is a v. Quadratic function, f of x equals x squared. We have our parabola. Now the next three are going to be new. So we have the square root function, okay, the cubic function, and the cube root function, okay. With each of these, I took screenshots from your book. They have the domain, the range, tells you the increasing, decreasing, and constant on the open interval, and tells you if they're even, odd, or neither. Okay, so all of that's there for you. You also have your graphing calculator. I'm not taking that away from you. Okay, so you use that as a resource if you need it. Okay. So translation rules. So y equals a times f of x plus h plus k. Remember the f is just the function. Okay, so that means, is it the absolute value? Is it the x squared? And the function helps determine the shape. Okay, the shape of our graph. Is it squared, so it gives us a parabola? Is it absolute value, so it gives us a v? Is it square root, so it gives us like a sloppy square root sign? So we'll talk about that. Okay, so talking about the different parts of our graph, starting with the a in front, we have two different things that the a value tells us. Okay, so if a is less than 0, which would mean it is negative, then we're going to reflect the x-axis. We're not going to talk about reflecting the y-axis, so you don't need to worry about that. If you ever reflecting, you're only reflecting x. Okay. Then we also have our vertical stretch and shrink. Okay. If the absolute value of a is greater than 1, so if you multiply something by 2, are you stretching it, making it bigger, or are you shrinking it, making it smaller? If you multiply something by 2. Bigger. Okay. So this is going to be a vertical stretch. And then lastly, if our a value, or the absolute value of our a value, is between 0 and 1, and then we're making it smaller, so it's a vertical shrink. I believe is what we used last year in Algebra 2. I believe your book or some of the questions on your homework will use compress. Okay, shrink and compress, they mean the same thing. They make something smaller. Okay. Any questions with A? Okay. Looking at H. I know Ms. Verbenek uses opposite, so it's going to be the opposite of whatever is happening on the inside. So if it's positive, we're going to have a horizontal, hold on, let's change this. Okay, the inside tells us about our horizontal translations. So if it's positive, we're going to the left. If it's negative, we're going to the right. Okay. And then the K value on the end, that is our vertical translations. And that is going to be correct. So if it's positive, we're going up. Negative, we're going down. Okay, this should all be review. Okay, moving left, right, up, down, stretch, shrink, reflect. Do we remember that?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's apply it. So we're going to state what type of translations are occurring, graph the function, and then we're going to talk about some of the key features. So our first one, f of x equals -3 times the absolute value of x minus 1 plus 4. So starting off, we have absolute value. So what's the shape?
V.
A V. Okay, talking about our translations, how is our graph moving? Or what do we know?
Negative.
It's negative, which means what?
Down.
Down. So A equals -3. So we know it's facing down. Ooh, how about let's make that a V? The terminology for that would be reflect the x-axis. What does the 3 do? Is that going to vertical stretch or shrink? How about it's going to make it taller? It's going to multiply something by 3. We're going to stretch it. Okay. On the inside of the absolute value of x minus 1, remember this is always opposite. So since it's negative, we're actually going what direction? To the right one. And then the plus 4, we're moving up or down? Up. Okay, so we're going to always start with that point first. So we're going to go right 1, up 4. And with absolute value, what's nice is we can use that value for A similar to our slope. So we can go down 3 and to the right 1. And since we have a V, we know that's going to continue to be a straight line. So that's the slope of your graph going to the right.
It's not the same on the left.
On the left, you're going to go down 3, but to the left 1. It's kind of like you're reflecting across that line of symmetry. Okay. The thing that I ask is that you make sure that it's a V and not a U. Okay? Because it changes the function if it changes the shape. Right? Yeah. So you have two options. You can either reflect, say, okay, we're going to go 1 away, so go 1 away. Or you can just go down 3, left 1. Yep. Other questions with making the graph? Okay. So in behavior, we're going to go easier than what you guys saw in Algebra 2. I just want to know what the arrows are doing. So what are the arrows doing?
Down, down.
Down, down. So I'm perfectly fine with you just drawing 2 down arrows. Domain?
Negative infinity, positive.
Negative infinity to positive infinity. Good. Range?
Negative infinity to 4.
Negative infinity to 4. Does 4 have a parenthesis or a bracket? Bracket. Good. Axis of symmetry. This is that line of symmetry. Okay, that's going to cut the graph in half. But it's a line, so it's going to have what in front of it?
A line.
Something equals 1.
Oh, x equals.
X equals 1. Good. Vertex is that very first point that we drew. So what was that ordered pair? 1, 4. X-intercepts are hard to tell in this one. I'm just going to tell you, I believe it's -1/3. And what would that be? 2 7/3. And then y-intercept would be what? I feel like we can tell this one. 1. Okay. Questions? Okay, something to notice. The x value of your axis of symmetry will always be the x value of your vertex. And the y value of your vertex will always match the y value of your range. Okay? Any questions?